Ready? Hi, everybody. Okay, testing 1, 2, 3. Hi, everybody. This is July 19th, 2025, and we are on day 1811, I believe 11. Let's see, it's since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room there on Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. And 1,812 days. 12 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room there on Fort Bliss and his life was taken from him. He was corroborating President Trump's policies on the border, the need for President Trump's policies, because he was reporting the criminal trafficking, the cartel criminal trafficking that absolutely was infiltrating the system, and we see that in El Paso. And we have such great news today. It's just amazing news that we have. So, of course, putting together all of the information we have, I wanted to talk about Senator Ted Cruz, and I will today. But of course, we have Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, 6 months in, reviewing. Of course, there has been in the intelligence community a real problem, right? There's been a real problem, and we know that. We know that because of the Chan brothers, right? FitFam El Paso, the El Paso intelligence community behind that. And that's why they didn't want to pay their taxes. That's why because they didn't want to list, you know. And of course, the whole Walmart mass shooting, absolutely an intelligence community operation. It was a bloody, absolutely. But was there a political agenda behind it? 100%. There's no doubt at all. The evidence absolutely confirms that. And this is not, you know, the narrative that they try to hypnotize all the people with, over and over again. Oh, this is what this is, a lone shooting, Patrick Crucius, Patrick Crucius. Did they use Patrick Crucius? Is Patrick Crucius part of this? Well, he's part of the Mayella family, right? That are absolutely behind this, and the intelligence community and the justice community and the law enforcement community that are absolutely tied to the cartel activities that are the worst type of crimes against children, the worst type of crimes against our country. And also, um, fraud, waste, and abuse. And I mean, using our system, taxpayers' money, to fund their criminal activities, right? To use our buildings, to use the air condition, to use, the retirement system, to use everything about our system to fund their cartel criminal activities. And, so now they're being caught, right? And they've got this big fish now. Tulsi Gabbard came out, and then I just posted it, and I think it's going to take a few days to really wrap our heads around it. But we absolutely knew that this was going on, that um, uh, Barack Obama was up to no good, that he was absolutely up to no good, that he used his presidency to and the intelligence community in ways that you're not allowed to do it, and in a way that's treasonous, because he's supposed to defend the Constitution, and he absolutely went against the Constitution, attacked the Constitution by using the intelligence community and taxpayer money to operate a coup against President Trump. And we've known this for a long time, or suspected it for a long time. And now, now we have the Department of National our Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and that, absolutely confirming it. She's not going to come out and put that kind of language out, the language that's probably never been heard come out of the Director of National Intelligence. I don't think it's ever come out language that she just did without absolutely being sure of what she was doing. And she's a smart cookie, and she was absolutely targeted also. And anyone that was trying to defend the Constitution and do the right thing and support President Trump, anyone that was trying to support President Trump was a target, and we know that because of the January 6th targeting of and y'all, I was there, and we were tear gassed, and we're talking about children being tear gassed, older veterans being tear gassed, people in wheelchairs being tear gassed. It was absolutely a plot. It was absolutely to form a false narrative to use against President Trump and anybody that supported him, anybody that supported the Constitution. And this is where, this is this good news because President Obama has gotten all the benefits of the country while attacking the country, which is treasonous. And he was welcomed with open arms by the country. Um, and he had his way in a bad way with our country. He did a lot of damage, and now it has come out with this evidence confirming that he acted treasonously. And so, what are the next steps? What are the next steps for this? I think a lot of arrests. But how does this apply to our son's case and our case? Because we've also been targeted. But Richard targeted very early on by Manuel Chavira and his family member, Bob Moore, their family, y'all, their family. Um, and they targeted Richard. They targeted Richard through their A&R Chavira Auto Group, trafficking Richard's vehicle, trying to. They we have our you can what happened. You know how they saw a stellar soldier, and I can tell you this: they just tried to collude and conspire in a way to discredit him. And when they couldn't discredit him, then his life was taken from him. And he is absolutely Bob Moore. I'm always thinking about this really demon Bob Moore. Bob Moore and Manny Chavira, who is unqualified without a peace officer's license, given this position just days after the Walmart mass shooting, to be the chief of police of the El Paso ISD and to be targeting Richard, which confirms if those two, with many others, are going to target Richard in 2019, like I said, then you know that they know who he is. They always knew who he was because he was a whistleblower. And did they have the ability to tamper with the files, to delete files? Absolutely. And is there, of course, Judge Roger Rodriguez is the whistleblower that confirms that they were tampering with Richard's files and deleting information. like the whistleblowing in 2019. And so if they're targeting Richard in 2019, that corroborates, that's evidence that Richard was triggering them, right? That Richard was triggering them. Here he is, um, 19-year-old, a 19-year-old just turning 20 years old, and they were triggered by him, and so much so that uh, they would use their platforms, they would use taxpayers' money to target him and try to destroy him, discredit him, get him into trouble. And of course, that was in collusion with the military leadership, his chain of command. And his chain of command, like Leilani Hart confirmed, was her son, Dallas Hart, and they were performing in her opinion, in her paper of January 8th, uh, 2021, when she was writing about Richard's um, disappearance and um, taking of his life, she absolutely said it was a code red, which implicates her own son because he's Richard's platoon leader. So the collusion starting in 2019 began with uh, the civilian sector, um, and then, of course, with the military. And so Richard was really triggering them, that they would use the FBI, the El Paso ISD police force, um, El Paso Matters, right? Their LLCs, and of course, military leadership in JAG. They, just think how big that is. But the real target was President Trump and the 2020 election. They wanted to win the 2020 election. This Walmart mass shooting was absolutely a political operation to form a false narrative that would hurt President Trump, that would blame President Trump, that would hurt President Trump. And of course, you could tell that it was orchestrated because of the El Paso Strong was all in place, uh, uh, you know, right there, like what day after, 2 days after. And that, of course, Joe Spencer in his audios, it all makes sense, was telling Judge Madrano before Judge Madrano was ever on the case. But, they had colluded and planned for him to be on the case. They always plan that. And the audio confirms that. And Joe Spencer is telling Judge Madrano and Judge Guadarrama that okay, he'll do this. He'll do this operation, this political operation, but he's not going to do it for nickels and dimes. He wants an open checkbook. He wants an open checkbook. So he knew what he was getting into because it, you know, he was in there on August 5th, visiting and interviewing Patrick Crusius on August 5th. Um, you know, and they had to have an approval for that open checkbook, um, for that to even happen that fast. And of course, with Ernest Christopher Grant and Chris Cuomo and Beto O'Rourke, and them going in right away, turning it into politics, with the El Paso Strong right there. They already had their logo. This was all a military operation, and was it bloody? Absolutely, it was. And it would be very interesting to have a true investigation to find out why um, Alexander Hofmann, a German national, was targeted. He was absolutely executed, okay? And there is hard evidence that he was executed. And so was Miss Roth, right? Rothe. Um, she was also executed in the parking lot. Absolute headshot, right? Um, and there was another man that was killed while he was sitting in his vehicle. And I don't know uh, all the details of that, but that is raises a lot of red flags too. These were very precise hits. Not anything that Patrick Crucius could do. Did Patrick Crucius shoot anybody? Well, he says one or two, but we don't know. We don't know because the Walmart mass shooting is so tampered with, and uh, they did not secure the scene for over 48 hours. And that was corroborated just recently, again, with all the other evidence that we have by a former FBI agent that was on the case, Michael Cordero, who said that, yes, uh, the FBI did not secure the scene for over 48 hours. And of course, we have the other official, the ranger, the Texas Ranger, confessing that this was a staged crime scene. So that means that there was a lot of tampering going on. And the video that I've posted that just by the grace of God and all the good people that want truth, how we receive that. We're very grateful. And it really, really shows the immediate response. And it is horrifying, horrifying to see how the law enforcement handled the immediate aftermath of the Walmart mass shooting. Absolutely horrible. I mean, just stepping right over Alexander Hofmann, not even offering any kind of security around or help at all. I mean, it's awful. The whole thing. So, and any law enforcement that watches that absolutely sees it. It's just a slap in the face, all of the violations that were occurring. So, and and the false stories, because you have Ernest Christopher Grant, you have all the media stories that we have gone through, and tried to place where these victims were, what it was like inside there, and what the news media was telling us and what that video shows are two different stories. So, what that tells you is that there's tampering, right? That there is irregularities, there's tampering, that the investigation was not conducted um, in all good faith, and so you know finally realizing that we have more than enough evidence to say that online, you go back and you review things. And one of the things that popped out is Senator Ted Cruz, because we know that Senator Ted Cruz was there. We know that he was there, and now it's been confirmed that he walked that crime scene before it was secured. And that is so illegal, y'all. That is so illegal. He has no right to walk that crime scene, to go into that Walmart, to walk around the Walmart before it's secured, before they have done their forensics, um, a sweep on the whole place. because we're told so many bullets were shot, and where are those bullets coming from? What kind of weapon? And all of that. There's just so much, and I'm not, law enforcement or a forensic expert, but I can tell you that walking an unsecured crime scene that is supposed to be, 23 killed and dozens injured, and to do that and all that evidence and to try to get justice for that, right? Um, they should, this was their biggest test, and they just treated it like it was a political operation, like it was set up. That's how they treated it. Um, and Ted Cruz was no different. Because we know that Jaime Esparza, the DA at the time, whose sister was at the Walmart at the time, that he walked the crime scene. He even filmed the crime scene. And that is just so illegal, right? That's so illegal, especially if he didn't put his film, enter it into evidence, right? And now we find out that um, Senator Cruz walked it. Uh, what does that mean? Okay, what does that mean? That means that Senator Cruz and Jaime Esparza absolutely knew that the the response was not being handled correctly, and they did not mention anything. Matter of fact, they praised the response instead of saying, wait a minute, there's some problems here. That crime scene is not even secured yet. Um, things aren't happening like normal, right? And we're jumping the gun with the narrative and to blame President Trump, and to affect an election. And they knew that affecting election is a very, very, very big deal, right? Because you're talking about the leader of the world. At this time, the president of the United States is the leader of the world. It is just such an important position. So you're messing with an election to be president of the United States, um, with a, a really faulty response to a mass shooting, and you're, jumping the gun into false narratives. And Senator Cruz jumped into it. He jumped into it, and he absolutely knew better. He's not a dumb person. You see that by the letter that he wrote us. He's not a dumb person. What really we saw was that um, he's up to no good, right? He's complicit with this political operation against President Trump. And the ramifications of that is a lot of lost lives, because Glennon Oakley Jr. got in the way too. He was a witness. He was a witness to what happened in the mall, and those military style security guards with M4s. He was a witness to that, and he lost his life on April 8th, 2020. He was found no longer alive in his barracks room on Fort Bliss, and he was put through the ringer too. They really put him through the ringer. Um, uh, and here he was, really a hero. And uh, President Trump absolutely knew what was going on, and so did Senator Cruz. And Senator Cruz went for President Trump. He allowed it. He allowed the attacks against President Trump. He allowed, um, by doing what he did, it gave a green flag to harass and intimidate Glennon Oakley Jr. It gave absolutely a green flag to plot, collude against Richard, to frame him, to it gave the military, it gave all of these cartel tied operatives that are part of this criminal trafficking a green flag to destroy Richard in any way they had to keep the false narrative going and active, and um, to keep this political coup, what DNI Tulsi Gabbard is now saying that Obama did. And so this is the same playbook over and over and over again. They didn't just use Russiagate or, trying to say that President Trump is uh, Russia, Russia. What else did they get him for? All these other things that they were trying to say, trying to get him for and discredit him, um, and even attempts on his life, right? They want him out, and you see that now, and it's the same actors. Um, and gosh, so much has happened today. I wanted to talk about this little sketch, nude sketch, and the letter and everything like that. And it's like, really, really, that's what you have. Um, it's it, and then it's so obviously tampered with. You know, uh, they just they're just so desperate because of this whole criminal trafficking, and I'm going to tell you it's up to Zorro's ranch, which is Jeffrey Epstein's ranch, is absolutely part of this criminal trafficking. There's no doubt in my mind. Is there any doubt in your mind? I mean, you got all these cases, you got the witnesses, you got all the witnesses that have been silenced already, witnesses that have lost their lives. You have hundreds of thousands of children being trafficked out of Fort Bliss, and you have this airspace, right? This secured airspace that nobody knows who's flying where or whatever, that goes from Chihuahua, well, really White Sands, into the Zorro Ranch, right? And that is a pipeline from Chihuahua, Mexico, all the way up to Zorro Ranch, and to have General Kelly being part of that, um, all the evidence absolutely confirms this pipeline, and it's a lot of money. And we know that Obama was absolutely up to no good. He has no really moral foundation, um, and he has proved that. He's absolutely proved that, sadly, but yeah, he's absolutely proved that. And now Tulsi Gabbard is showing the world what he was really up to. And he was trying to save his grand theft larceny ties with the cartel, with the CCP, with the criminal trafficking there, right there in El Paso. Um, it, you know, it's Hawaii. With Hawaii, the ties in Hawaii um, is just very, very obvious that this is all connected, same actors. That's why I said, like the attempts on Trump's life. Oh my gosh, when you look into them and you get addresses and everything, you're like, oh my gosh, these are all connected people. These are all connected. They're in the law, they're in the intelligence community, they're in the FBI. I think Kash Patel has a lot of work he has to do cleaning out the FBI. And it's just obvious that this is all coming to light, which is such good news. And they, now we need to have the stomach, we need to have the strength to prosecute um, these treasonous. I mean, absolutely, Obama has committed treason, and absolutely, Senator Cruz has committed treachery. Right? Treachery. I even made a couple notes of, and I think I posted it too. What he could be charged for, and it's just let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, misprison of treason, concealing knowledge of treason, and failing to report it. I mean, that whole Walmart mass shooting was a coup in itself, just like what Tulsi Gabbard is reporting on with Obama. And Senator Cruz is absolutely guilty for concealing that. You think that he didn't know who the Mayellas were? You don't think that he knew that that whole 8chan or whatever, um, um, what do you call it? The manifesto was a farce. I mean, the garbage, 8chan garbage. You don't, I mean, he's not a dumb guy. He walked the crime scene. He met with the FBI. He met with law enforcement. He got the briefings. He had the access. He had access to information that he should not have had access to. And so he really absolutely knew he was concealing that knowledge, that this was absolutely botched. And I believe that he knew that it was a political attack. Um, and then also misprison of felony, knowing a federal felony was committed and not reporting it. Yeah, he knew that that the law enforcement there were part of this. That is a felony, right? Obstruction of justice, interfering with the investigation and prosecution of a federal crime. I mean, he walked the crime scene. That is obstruction of justice. I mean, that's tampering with the crime scene. Who knows what happened during that walk? And then conspiracy against rights, if done to immediate or to harm uh, our rights. I mean, can you imagine? Our house was searched without a warrant. Can you believe it? Um, yeah, it just, uh, and he knew all of this stuff. We've been in contact with him throughout all these years. He knew the hell that we were going through. He knew that Richard was. Um, Absolutely, this was a result from the Walmart mass shooting, that it was the same people that he greenlit. He, by agreeing to go along with it, by agreeing to perpetuate the false narrative, he he gave them a green flag to hurt Richard. Absolutely. Absolutely. Saying, I'm going to cover it up. And he did, didn't he? I mean, he never even challenged Warmouth, Christina Warmouth, when Warmouth shut him down, and she's like 20 steps lower than him. I mean, he's a sitting senator, and he couldn't even have the strength to do what was right up against her. He knew it. They knew it. They knew this was a political operation, and he went along with it. Even though Richard lost his life, Richard was targeted and abused, tortured, and and he lost his life, and then our family to be put through this hell. So also he violated the color of law violations. That's on my list too. Misusing authority to harass, silence, and violate our rights. Yeah, just absolutely. He is uh he's part of this. He's part of this Obama thing. I'm telling you right now. And he must have some real connections down at the southern border. He must have, because he's up to no good. And he must profit or get funded by people that are involved in this. Um, that's my suspicion on it all. And and he was willing to commit treason against the United States for it. I would call it treason, just like Obama. So yeah, so this is not really about Democrat or Republican, even though the Democrats have a really, really big part in this. Um, unfortunately, I hate that. I hate that. And but the Republicans too. The Republicans too. This was about profiting off of the worst type of crimes against children and the grand theft larceny of our country through cartel tied criminal trafficking and conspiring with the CCP because the CCP absolutely run Mexico. And Mexico has to get back its sovereignty from the CCP. Otherwise, they just will have more of this, more of this. So, and it's miserable. It's absolutely miserable. So many people die. And it's just a horrible culture. It's just absolutely the worst. Um, so, uh, this, three big things, I guess, happened today. Tulsi Gabbard coming out with these treason accusations, or are they charges against President Obama, rightfully so. And then, of course, looking at this letter and picture that is supposedly drawn by President Trump. And, because I do a lot of artsy kind of things and on the computer and with the memes and things like that, I know all about layers and how to put together different images and composites and that. And I can tell you right now that that was tampered with. That is layers. That is a composite. That's an overlay, which absolutely then, you know. But even the picture itself, it's like who the heck cares? I mean, um, they're just I don't know. Uh, they and now after 10 years, I mean, they've tried everything, and um it's just so obvious that this is all political back and forth um warfare, right? Political warfare. So that happened, and then of course this whole Ted Cruz confirming that he walked that crime scene with when it wasn't even secured yet, that he had firsthand knowledge and access to the Walmart mass shooting case, and he perpetuated absolutely false. It was absolutely known. There is no way that you can walk that crime scene and have access to the FBI and to the law enforcement and know who's who there in law enforcement and the judicial. I mean, he's a big time lawyer, he's a senator. He absolutely knows who's running the federal courthouse in El Paso. He knows the Mayellas. He absolutely knows who the DA is. He absolutely knows um, what's all the cartel and criminal trafficking going on there and the infiltration. He knows what's going on in Chihuahua, Mexico. And yet, he played us for fools. That's what he did. Instead of doing his job that we pay him for, because we're busy doing other things in our life, and he's supposed to be the senator. Just because I'm, raising children doesn't mean I'm supposed to do senator's job. We pay taxes so he can do the senator's job, right? He can have oversight of that area, so we don't have to know everything that's going on. That's his job to do. And so this is a betrayal of Senator Cruz to the highest extent, because this is really just about treason. I know it's treachery. I know it's treachery. I know it's misprision of treason. I know it's misprision of felony. I know it's obstruction of justice, conspiracy against the rights, and color of law violations. I know it's that. And so, he really needs to, whatever, he needs to answer for this because lives were lost because of um, his complicity with the fake narrative and the coup, the attack on President Trump. And, whether you like President Trump or not, that's what it was, you know. And if they can do it, if you just because, I have no problem with President Trump, but if others have a problem with him, and they're going to be like, okay, good, whatever, because there's Trump derangement syndrome or something like that. Um, you need to hold on and you need to think about it because if they do it to one, that sets a precedence, and then they can do it to others, and they can do it across the aisle too, right? And so, the law needs to be treated as the law. And what they did to President Trump was absolutely a violation. And so much so that, Tulsi Gabbard is calling it treason, rightfully so. So, and I've said this all through this case with the generals, and what's going on there against Yvonne Rosales. What they did to her was absolutely violations and wrong. So, we're just trying to get to uh, do what's right. We're just trying to do what's right and get our son's remains, reveal all of this, um, and hold these people accountable, because you see what happens when they're not held accountable. Then they feel like they have a green flag to do the worst type of crimes and to take life where they want, and then just send it over the border and get it piled up into a rotten body um, dumping ground. And when you get around to cremating, whatever, but if you don't feel like it, just cremate a few animals, stick that in a vase and hand it to a family and tell them that's your family member. I mean, it's just despicable what the lack of a good senator, um, the treasonous actions or treacherous actions of a senator, what that leads to. And so accountability is very, very important to set a precedence that no, you can't get away with it. We honor our law in this country, and we want things to um, work according to the laws of the land. So that is what will give us freedom, right? And so, and that will give us justice. That's And I will tell you that the conversations about this have brought up Seth Rich, in all of this, that there is not justice in Seth Rich's case, which is very similar too. So he was a whistleblower, and so I don't know if you know about that, but it is interesting that that popped up in all of this. So um, yeah, thank you for coming on, Anicia. Thank you for your prayers and your love, and thank you, Danielle, for your prayers, for your for your insight and for your love too. And we will be back tomorrow